This is LWT. Now Melvin Bragg introduces this week's South Bank Show.
In a moment, the man who wrote Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Edward Albee. Hello. For more than 30 years, Edward Albee's been considered as one of America's 2 or 3 most important dramatists. At the forefront of New York's avant-garde in the early 1960s, he shocked the world with the emotional violence of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? His 22 plays have consistently surprised audiences with the variety of their theatrical styles, from the simple, dramatic dialogue of the zoo story to the surreal seascape featuring giant talking sea lizards, to an apparently conventional drawing room play like A Delicate Balance, torn apart with psychological menace. Albee's career has had its troughs as well. By 1980, he was so out of favour that one of his finest plays, The Lady from Dubuque, closed after just 12 performances. But now, aged 66, he's come bounding back. His latest play, Three Tall Women, won him his 3rd Pulitzer Prize in New York, and the London production starring Dame Maggie Smith is the hottest ticket in town, winning Best Play at the Evening Standard Awards.
I'm 91.
Okay.
You're 92.
Let it alone.
No, it's important. Getting things right.
Doesn't matter.
It does to me.
I know because he says you're exactly 30 years older than I am. I know how old I am because I know how old you are. And if ever you forget how old you are, ask me how old I am, then you'll know. Oh, he said that a lot.
What if he's wrong?
What?
Let it be.
Oh, what if he's wrong? What if he's not 30 years younger than you?
You'd think he'd know how old he is.
No, I mean, what if he's wrong about how old you are?
Don't be silly. How couldn't he be 30 years younger than me when I'm 30 years older than he is? He said it over and over.
If you look at the history of the American theater, there are really 4 plays that have really changed the American theater forever. Streetcar Named Desire, and then 3 plays that deal with family: Death of a Salesman, A Long Day's Journey into Night by O'Neill, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Albee.
Who's afraid of Virginia?
Albee sort of ripped the facade off of the 50s idea of the American family.
I'm just beginning.
I'm numbed enough so that I can take you when we're alone. I don't listen anymore. But if I do listen, I sift everything so I don't really hear you, which is about the only way to manage it. But you've taken a new tack, Martha, in the last century or 2, which is just too much. Too much. I don't mind your dirty underthings in public. Well, I do mind, but I'd reconcile myself to that. But you move bag and baggage into your own fantasy world. You don't
Nuts.
know what you have.
Nuts!
It was a play that had a tremendous impact as a play in your country, in my country, in many other countries, and then a terrific impact again as a film. Why do you think it hit the nerve?
Being in the right place at the right time.
And what was the right place and what was the right time?
This was a period in the early 1960s in the United States during the presidency of John Kennedy, where we were an enormously optimistic society. We thought that we could affect social change. We were paying a great deal more attention for a short period there to the serious arts in the United States. The outsider was in, the Beat Generation had come along. We were examining ourselves, looking at our own consciousness a little bit more carefully and with less fear than we did before and have since. And so Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf came along during that period, which made it a little easier for it. But there were a lot of other reasons why it became a commercial success that are ironic. It was considered by many critics to be foul-mouthed. One critic said this play should only be seen by dirty-minded women, which added a year to the run in New York.
All the dirty-minded women rushed to see it.
And that play got half good reviews and half lousy reviews. One of the most important critics in New York said the play has a hole in its head. But we thought we were going to have to close it 3 days after we opened it on Broadway, as a matter of fact. Really? But then some other reviews started coming in, some good ones. from more serious critics. And the word of mouth started happening.
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf takes place over a drunken night of vicious marital warfare. The play was made into a film, starring Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor as the childless couple George and Martha, who have invented an imaginary son.
This artificial child that they invented one night out of pleasure became so real that it was corrupting their relationship. And on the eve of its 21st birthday, of course, it had to be destroyed, because once something is 21, you can't control it anymore. Now, George didn't consciously know that, but I think he had it in the back of his unconscious mind.
I have to leave around noon, I suppose.
I will not let you decide these things.
Because there are matters of identification, naturally, and arrangements to be made.
You can't do this. I won't let you do this. Get your hand off me.
I haven't done anything. Now, you listen to me. Our son is dead.
Can
you get that in your head?
Let go of me.
Well, listen to me carefully. We got a telegram. There was a car accident, and he's dead. Poof. Just like that. Now, how do you like it?
No!
All right. Go now. She'll be all right.
Is that why I originally called it The Exorcism?
I imagine so, yes, The Exorcism of the Child. You know, sometimes we get lucky. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is a much better title. Do you know what the original title was of Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire?
Yeah.
The Poker Night. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And Orwell's 1984 was The Last Man in Europe.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good title, too.
Not as good as 1984.
No, well, I don't know. Tennessee had a very, very particular laugh. I shall try to imitate Tennessee Williams' laugh. Hear, hear, hear. That's the way Tennessee laughed. And I knew he was going to come to a preview of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And so I put in there in the beginning of Act 3, when Martha is doing her drunken wandering around stage all by herself, I had her say, "Up the drain, down the spout, dead, gone, and forgotten," which is a quote from A Streetcar Named Desire. And then I had her say, "The Poker Night." She knew the original title, and Tennessee broke into his great, wonderful laughter when that occurred. Later on, in the third act, when George comes back in and thrusts the flowers, what does he say? Flores. Flores para los muertos, which is also a quote from Streetcar. I put those things in to amuse myself and to amuse Tennessee. Now, I imagine there are going to be some scholars who will find other significance there, but it was just to amuse me.
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf seems to be about love degenerating through illusion and delusion, but it's also, I would say, your most optimistic play.
Sorry. I don't know that it is about love degenerating. Those two people have not stayed together for 25 years in a sadomasochistic relationship. They have stayed together because they love each other deeply in spite of the things that have happened to their relationship.
Doesn't that test the word love to breaking?
Close to breaking, but why not? No, I do, if they're both enormously intelligent people. Mm-hmm. If there wasn't some deep affection binding them, they're both intelligent enough to walk out of it.
Well, there's a sense of dependency in a relationship which can prevent even intelligent people walking away from it, isn't there?
Yes, of course, they didn't have any children holding them together. He was not getting very far at the
But they were each
university.
other's children, weren't they?
What?
They were each other's children, in a way.
I think that had they not loved each other hopelessly and deeply, they wouldn't have stayed together.
So you see it as, in that sense, still describable as, in one way, it's described in several ways, as a love story. But what about this view I have, which you, about it being, in the end, an optimistic love story?
Well, follow it through. These are two people who have made a lot of mistakes in the course of their marriage, and it has gotten into serious trouble through a combination of things. The artificial child, George's failure as a professor, Martha's drinking, and infidelities, all sorts of things that a number of fully stable marriages have managed to survive. We're left with these two people absolutely naked psychologically, stripped away from all of the illusions. They can't kid each other anymore. What's going to happen? They're going to do one of two things. They're either going to be strong enough to be able to survive without all the crap, all the false illusions. Or they're going to separate because they can't tolerate looking at each other truly. Or they could conceivably start building false illusions again. So there are three alternative propositions there. And you know, I don't know which is going to happen. Mm-hmm. I really don't know. And I don't think it's my job to know which is going to happen.
In Virginia Woolf, as in A Delicate Balance and one or two other plays, drink plays a big part, as it does in O'Neill, as it does in Tennessee Williams, as it does in many playwrights. What does that enable you to do?
In that particular play, of course, everybody drinks differently. When I was directing a production in Los Angeles, we started analyzing this. How many drinks does everybody have in the course of the play?
Quite a lot.
And it was very interesting. George has 3 drinks in the entire play, but he pushes liquor on other people, which diffuses their defenses. And
does he do it in order to do that? Do you think liquor does diffuse defenses?
Oh, I think it does, sure. It certainly makes people less on their guard.
Did you ever drink? I mean, you don't drink.
Oh, yeah, sure, I used to drink, yes. I never did drugs, I used to drink. And then I finally decided, Edward, there are one or two things you can possibly do, drink or write. And I decided that writing was more interesting.
Was that because you were drinking heavily?
I was, eventually, yes, so I stopped.
Let's go back to the first play the play that made your name, Bang, The Zoo Story, 1960, about 2 men who meet in Central Park in New York one Sunday afternoon. It ends up with the death of one of the 2 men.
In this extract, Peter, a married publisher from New York's affluent Upper East Side, has been confronted by Jerry, an unemployed loner who lives in a rundown bed-sit.
Doesn't sound like a very nice place where you live.
Well, no, it isn't an apartment in the East 70s. But then again, I don't have 1 wife, 2 daughters, 2 cats, and 2 parakeets. What I do have, I have toilet articles, a few clothes, a hot plate that I'm not supposed to have, a can opener, one that works with a key, you know? A knife, 2 forks and 2 spoons, 1 small, 1 large, 3 plates, a cup, a saucer, a drinking glass, 2 picture frames, both empty, 8 or 9 books, a pack of pornographic playing cards, regular deck, an old Western Union typewriter that prints nothing but capital letters, and a small strongbox without a lock, which has in it what? Rocks. Some rocks. Sea-rounded rocks I picked up on the beach when I was a kid.
It was about an outsider. It was about a generation of people rebelling against conformity, against their society as it exists. It seemed to resonate very, very nicely.
One thing it did was to bring what was a very strong European movement sensibility, Paris-based, the existentialist, to Manhattan.
The plays of Beckett and Ionesco and Genet were being done, or beginning to be shown in New York City around the time, I don't know, a year before, 2 years after, The Zoo Story. The Zoo Story appeared right in the middle of that growing awareness of the fact that theater was a far broader and larger and more interesting experience than we'd been led to believe by the Broadway experience.
When Albee's The Zoo Story was produced in 1960, Broadway's commercial stranglehold over American theatre was coming to an end. Young American playwrights were writing experimental dramas for small 200-seat theatres in and around Greenwich Village. After an initial production in Berlin, The Zoo Story opened at the Provincetown Playhouse on MacDougal Street, where it rapidly became a symbol of what the off-Broadway movement was about. Albee had arrived in Greenwich Village 12 years earlier in the late 1940s.